Hey, all right. Well, welcome everybody. Wow, it's in-person VCF East. And a lot bigger crowd. I thought it'd just be me and like two other guys in here, so I'm really impressed that there's a lot of folks here. That's great. So this is pretty exciting. I'm going to be talking a lot about the using this PC and a modern IDE for developing Commodore 8-bit stuff. I'm not going to go into a lot of the fancy programming bits because I want to show a lot of the features. So it's going to be, not a lot of like impressive programming, but a lot of good stuff anyway. So if you get too excited, just feel free to quietly, get up, walk out in the hall, catch your breath, and when you're ready to come back in for some more amazingness, just step back in. All right, a little bit about me. I grew up in a little town in Oklahoma. It was in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere. And I first got my first exposure to a TI 994A. The library got two TI 99s. And that was the first time I'd seen a microcomputer. First time I'd seen a computer at all. Then I met my friend Kenny, who also liked the TIs, and he had a VIC-20. And I wanted to go and see his VIC-20. And, oh man, that VIC-20 was great. And then, so Christmas is coming up, and I'm thinking, I want a VIC-20. So I'm like bothering my parents about, I want a VIC-20, I want a VIC-20. I didn't think we could afford a Commodore 64, so I was thinking, all right, I just want a VIC-20. And then there it was, under the Christmas tree, a box that was like the right shape to be a VIC-20. And so I'm opening the paper, and I'm like, what? It's not a VIC-20, it's a Commodore 64. And like my vision kind of like tunneled and kind of hard to breathe, and like the heavens opened up and I had a Commodore 64. So I was, that started my journey really. So after high school, I did join the Army, spent 4 years in the Army. And then after that, I had an opportunity to move to Minnesota. I spent a lot of years in Minnesota, and that's probably why my accent's hard to pin down, because I've got a little Oklahoma and a little Minnesota in there. But I had a lot of good companies I had opportunities to work for, learned a lot. I moved here to New Jersey in 2012, and I currently work for that company in the middle. It's pronounced iSIMS, not ICMS. Actually, because there was a software system called SIMS, so this was about the time of the, all the iMacs and iPhones, so it became iSIMS, and they sort of stuck with it. Anyway, and two people that work with me are in the audience, so hello. I don't know if you're big fans of American football, but in American football, they talk a lot about coaching trees, and you can tell a lot by a coach from who else they coach for or who taught them something. So this is my programming language coaching tree. All the languages that I was actually paid to learn and paid to use, so you can maybe tell a little bit about me by the things in that column. And then, of course, there's a lot of things that I just learned for free. And this is my programming tree. So, all right, what we're going to talk about. Man, when I first used my Commodore 64, that screen editor was just unbelievable. After looking at other systems where you had to like edit line by line, and now I've got the screen editor, I can cursor up, and I can edit right there. It was amazing. But looking at it now, it's kind of hard to remember that. That's only 40 rows and 25 columns. It's like an itty-bitty little postage stamp, right? And the only way you could keep track of things, if you had a program that didn't fit on the screen, you had to have a lot of handwritten notes. I remember having notebooks for like, keeping track of like go sublines and like all these other like, conversion routines, and it was like a lot of work. But you can still do that if you really want to. You can go work on the original hardware. Maybe you have one of the C64 Maxis or a C64 Mini, or even if you're going to use an emulator like we're using today. But why? When you have a computer that can display so much more. So there's three tools I think are really important to make this all work. And we're going to show, like real quick, all three of them. Hopefully you got some familiarity with the Vice emulator. That's been around for a while. It's very stable. And I'm going to be using a tool called DIR Master. If you haven't seen that, it's got some amazing support for all of the popular formats from Commodore as far as the D64 and the Tape 64 and PRG files. It's got all that stuff. And I'll show you a little bit about that and tell you why I want to use it. Then, of course, we're going to focus mostly on this thing called CBM PRG Studio. I call it CBM PRG Studio. So I don't know if that's right or not, though. That's what I call it. All right, let's do a quick tour of this stuff. Let's see if I can get everything on the screen. All right, so a little Vice thing here, right? So let's make it white so you can see the font a little better, right? All right, very familiar, right? You can type this little program that everybody's seen like 100 times, right? Run that. Now Vice is also cool because, you know, if you want to clear the screen beforehand, you could do something like that. It doesn't expect it, right? But it also kind of does some good keyboard mappings for you. So if I don't want to do this sort of thing, and this might look familiar to you, right? So if I do this, and it has the keyboard mapping so I can do that. Everyone remembers the reverse heart, right? So, same results. All right, so Vice, good enough. You know, you also can attach a disk image, you can attach to a D64, you can, you know, load $, you know, $8, and you can do all those things. But there's a lot easier ways to do it when you're on a Windows machine. Let me kill this and show you something else. All right, so I had an opportunity to extract all of my Commodore floppies to D64 files. And that probably is a whole talk amongst itself, but I'm not going to really focus on that. But there's a lot of ways to do that if you have questions how to get your old floppies onto D64 files. Anyway, so I've got an association here with that DIR Master program I was talking about. And there it is. This is a disk I made in, I think I made this disk in 1983. And this is an image of it. It's got some cool stuff because you can double-click on one of these listings, and it will actually give you a listing. It actually does all the conversion for all the pesky characters and things like that. You can't edit this, but it's a nice little display. Now, something else really cool here is that you can create new disks, and it's really easy to manage these things because you can copy things. I don't want to copy that one. Let's copy this mini frog thing. You can copy things to other D64s by drag and drop. Very cool program. You can also take these things and you can extract them out to PRG files or other binary files and things like that. Super helpful. All right, but the cool thing I want to show you real quick, this program Thief. Thief was one of the first programs I remember actually writing. I had seen one on the TI-99-4A, this program where you try to guess a combination of a safe. And I wanted to make my own version. So I remember making this. I think I had my computer for like 4 months when I made this program. So it's pretty bad. Anyway, so in the options here, oops, I'm sorry. Let's see. In the options, you can specify an emulator and you can run it directly based on a hotkey. So I have a map to my Vice emulator here. So what happens is I can select one of these programs on this D64 file. I can say I want to run it in that emulator. That's the program. So this program, like I said, I made it when I was, I guess I was a freshman in high school. And you're supposed to do this little thing where you kind of try to see if you can get a combination, and there it is, and there's the first digit, and if I run out of time, it's going to get me here, but maybe I'll get one time through there. But and I really didn't know how I had bad spelling apparently back then too. All right, so I'm going to slow down. I won't get caught this time. I'll just show you the whole thing here. All right, shouldn't take too many ticks, and I will get caught. I remember when I did this too. I remember the position on the screen for the safe. I just started drawing on the screen editor with the pesky keys, and was able to make this little graphic. And I thought it was pretty cool. Then I had to go back afterwards, and you probably did this too, right? You go back afterwards and you have to put 10, print, quote, and then go way to the end and close that quote. And I did that to get this into the program. Anyway, didn't know how to spell issue here in a second. Yeah, I'm an amateur. I don't know. All right. So that's how I can launch this from a D64 file using DIR Master. Pretty cool. But now let's get really cool. All right, this is the CBM PRG Studio like I was talking about. So I'm going to create a new project. You can specify it targets all the 8-bit machines. I'm going to target a C64 here. And let's call this one Thief. I don't want to create a Git repo for this at the moment. And it gives me this little project explorer. It has a framework here. So for a basic file, I want to import a basic file. When I import that basic file, it's going to give me a browser, and I can say, I want to go find in a D64 image. I got it right here, that first disk. And it will read that D64, and it will give me all of the PRG files that it can find on there. Now I'm going to say, I want to import this Thief program. And there it is. First thing you might notice here, I've got my editor font hopefully large enough that people can mostly see. But you can already see I got a lot more on the screen here besides just the 40 by 25, right? Now the other thing you might notice is like, what happened to the safe? Why is the safe all these weird codes? This is ASCII, right? So it doesn't know how to edit that PETSCII stuff. So there's a lot of things that are built into the studio, and I'm going to show you most of these later on, for how it converts. There's 2 different formats it can convert these into based upon your options, but this will give you the codes. So anyway, this is the same program that we just saw, and from here, I can build this little program and run it. And I've already hooked in my emulator to the studio so it knows about it. And there you go. It loads that to a PRG file, loads it in the disk, and there's the same program. Come from CBM PRG Studio. All right, I know, that was magic. Hang on, it's going to get better. All right, let me keep track of where I'm at. Oh yeah, we're going back to the slideshow for a second. Okay, so this has been around for a while. It's written by this guy named Arthur Jordison. He actually wanted to do it for, he was going to start a project at work, and it was going to be using VB.net, and he'd never used VB.net before. So he said, I want to do a side project, and he was kind of passionate about Commodore things, so that's what he did. He learned VB.net by creating this development environment. There were a lot of different similar like individual tools at the time. There was like this TOC64 thing that did like this PETSCII to ASCII conversion, and there were lots of other different tools that did things, and he didn't actually import them. He actually kind of rewrote them all and bundled them all in. It goes way back. Like I said, he first released it in 2011, and he still keeps it up. About every 2 years or so, he will release a new version. It's free, which is cool. Feel free to donate. I think he appreciates that. But it's not open source. So you can't go and build it yourself. You can't go modify it, things like that. So he does keep that pretty close and tight to the vest. But because it was VB.net, that means it's built on a Microsoft.NET framework, which means that if you're not using a Windows PC, you may have to do some things to get it to run. It is possible to run it on both a Mac and on a Linux machine, but there's tutorials out on the web that will teach you how to do that if you're not using a Windows PC. All right. This is sort of like the big feature list. It's a lot. This is why I think this tool has more traction than there's several different, if you're VS Code, a lot of people use VS Code for a lot of development now. And there's plugins that can kind of do some of the pieces that we're going to talk about, but not all of them. So this is why I think this really has, I was about to say market share, but if it's free, does it have a market? I don't know how to say that. It's popular. All right. Yeah, maybe. All right, so we're not going to be able to go all these, but I do want to show you a lot of the code editing stuff. The screen editor, which I think is pretty awesome. The Sprite Editor, and we'll talk a little bit about the assembler if I don't use all my time talking about the other stuff. So let's see how I do. All right. Oh, man, I had one more slide I want to show before I do that. Okay. Code editor. This is what I'm going to show you first. Wow. The auto numbering, I wish I would have had that back in the day. Autocomplete, I think Commodore Basics is pretty straightforward, so you maybe don't need the autocomplete, but there's an autocomplete there. the white space. I think for me, personally, why I use it is the white space. I can like put all these things in there, and then before I build the program, it actually compresses all that white space and removes some of the preprocessor stuff, so I can do all this now, but when it comes over to the C64, it's already optimized the code and shrunk it down. The renumbering tool, I'm going to show you the renumbering tool a couple times. And I think you also saw how I had a project, and you can put multiple files. So you can put like multiple basic files, and it will like smush them all together for you in a build, which is pretty cool too. All right, so let's try it out. All right, let's close this project. And I'm going to start a new C64 project. I'll just call this one Code 1. Note straight here. All right, let's start off with something really simple. I'm going to add a new file, new basic file. I'll just call it, I don't know, main. All right, I can start off anywhere I want to. My first line here, you know, I'm going to do something similar. We saw that. Cool, we saw it. Auto parens, I didn't do that. It actually put those parens in there for me. Then when I hit enter at the end of this line, my auto number comes in. That's pretty cool. You might also be wondering, why is this all lowercase, right? That's sort of a preference. You can set this to go either way. I think I'm just used to seeing code in lowercase, and then it will still convert it when it goes over to the C64 and it compiles it. It will still actually get all uppercase for me. All right. Oh, yeah, let's do this a little bit more. Let's just do a little, I had this idea for doing a little ASCII printout here. You know, I think I want to make this font a little bigger. I'm looking at it on the screen up there. I don't know if I like that size. Give me 1 second here. Let's go into the options, fonts, and let's make this, oh, let's go big. Let's try 20, see if that makes it a little more readable. Now I can do better than that. All right, let's go all the way to 24, and maybe we'll stop there. All right. Anyway, all right. Print character string for that I, and next. All right. Simple little program. So let's check it out in the emulator. See what it looks like. All right. Nothing that impressive, but if I list this, you'll also see that all that white space and whatever, it's all gone. All right, let's make it better. Let's show something else. Let's talk about the renumber thing. All right, so I've got this section here. I want to add some more code between this hello world and this little, loop that's going to print out some characters. If I select a piece of text, I can renumber just that text, and I can specify where do I want the numbers to start at, what the increment is. So yeah, I'm going to say start at 100. So that just takes that block. If I had things inside this block that were go-tos or go-subs, it would actually recalculate those and give me the new line numbers, which is pretty cool. If I didn't select this as a block, I could just renumber the entire program. I'm probably going to do that a little bit later, so hold on for that. All right, get some more space here. All right. Let's do a screen code. Yeah, let's do that. All right. So same as I showed you when I was in Vice, and it knew how I could do like certain codes. That's how I got the little reverse heart to clear the screen. Can't do that exactly here. But what I can do, if I open up a quote, there's a screen code builder. So in this, or you can hit F4, the screen code builder gives me a keyboard or this key map or this handy little key codes thing here. And so from there I say I want to clear the screen. And I want to turn the text white. It gives me this little kind of like workspace here. I can mess around with it. But then when I say update, it's actually going to take that and pop it into that where my insertion point was back in the code. So I'll update that, and there it brought that in there. So that's going to, when I do this and bring it over to the emulator, it's going to give me the actual heart and then the little E, the reverse E for making it white. So that's kind of cool. All right. Okay, let's talk about comments. This is a pretty typical comment, right? Everyone knows this one. That one's no different. That will actually get in the code and it will come across and it'll still be there. there are two other types of comments that this editor supports. One, let me add something more in here. Let me add a, yeah, I think I'm going to do that one. Let's do that, and just do a little, you know, wait for a character. All right, so then I have this little block here, these two-line block that I want to have a listing-only comment. A listing-only comment is an exclamation and a dash. And when I compress this and send it over to the emulator, it removes these listing-only comments. So these are just for me to see and kind of move and keep things arranged in here. There's also a really cool block comment. So if I go in here, I've got, you know, this little loop for the printing out the characters. I want to add something here, so I'm going to go to Edit, and there's a comment block. Gives you this little thing where I say, you know, loop through some characters. And what do I want to have as a boundary? Because it's going to draw a nice little box around this. And there. So that gives me a nice little block comment. And once again, it's a listing-only comment because it has the exclamation and the dash, so it's not going to end up in the eventual program code, so that's kind of cool. All right, so I've got this section here, and since I know what this is, I'm going to say, let's change this comment to be something more descriptive, you know, like wait for a key. There's a thing where you can do regions. Regions allow you to collapse and expand code pieces. So the best way, you can do that by typing this region thing, but I like this way. So I'll highlight a section of the code, under the edit menu, under the selection, they call it a fold. So I'll take this fold, and it will then collapse that little bit of code. Gives me the little region. I can put something after the end of it here. You know, that's where I wanted my comment to be really for, I guess. So when you're working with like large chunks of code, it gives you an easy way to kind of collapse things into, and you can kind of say these are like things, and I know what they are. I'll keep them out of the way. So the regions are pretty cool. Oh yeah, let's do this. All right, so loops. You know, let's make this a little more interesting by jumping over a few characters along with the loops. So instead of just having a line, let's do it so it's going to be going across. All right, so I always wish I could do this back before, but so now I got these. There's this indent and outdent, so I can move that over so it actually looks a little bit more like a modern programming language, so I can kind of keep track of like what the heck is going on between these loops. So that's really handy. All right, I think that's the pieces I wanted to show. Let me see if I've missed something. I'm trying to keep my notes here because I just made this last night. Oh yeah. All right, good. Oh, I know what I need. I need for this. After I press the key, I want to clear the screen again. That's what I forgot. All right. See, I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. I didn't actually have to go into the screen code thing. I could just type the same thing with that format. All right. So code looks a lot different. Code doesn't quite look like C64 Basic in some ways, but it's pretty cool. All right, let's go look at it in the emulator. All right, no surprise there. Cleared my screen, waiting for any key. There it is. So if I list this though, wow, that's all it came out. So all the other good stuff with my white space and my indenting and my regions and my other listing comments, all gone. Pretty cool. All right, let's do one more thing and then we'll get back into the other bits. I told you how I can have multiple files. So what I want to do here is create a separate basic file, add it to the project. I'm going to call this one subs. All right, so in this new file, I actually want to take, this is sort of a simple subroutine, you could say in some ways, so I want to take this piece out. I wish it had a nice extract to file, but it doesn't. All right, so that's kind of cool. But, so now it's a subroutine, I really need to have this numbers. So let's highlight, no, I don't need to highlight the text. This is my whole file here. So I'm going to go into the renumber. I'm going to say, let's start that at, I don't know, line 1000. So then handily renames that. Also realized that my goto was part of that, and it renumbered that as well. Pretty neat. So I'm going to make it a subroutine. I also need to have line 1030 here to return. Okay. So now I know I've got in this subs.basic file, I've got this little subroutine that's going to wait for a key, starts at line 1000. So take that out. Go sub 1000. But there's no 1000 in this file, right? Where's it going to come from? Oh, hang on. There we go. Make sure I end. But this is going to work. And why is it going to work? Because it's this is more of a project. So if I go to the project and build this and run this, I think I got everything right. Let's see. Nope. I got an invalid line number. 1000 is right. Try that. Oh, thank you. See, I'm really thinking way too modern language, wasn't I? All right, got past it that time. So, looks the same, performs the same. There it is. It takes those two files. So you have to be careful. One, I guess, obviously you have to remember to put a line number when you put the go sub, but you also, it will combine all those basic files together so you can keep things in line. You have to kind of watch out for your line number, so that does become a problem. All right, wow, I think that was all the bit I wanted to show on that one. How am I doing on time? Wow, it's almost 9. All right. All right, let's try something else. All right, we've talked about the code editor. Now I want to talk about what I think is one of the coolest things I wish I would have had. There's a screen editor. And the screen editor allows you to do a lot of cool stuff and generate this code. So let's go and take a look at the screen editor. All right. I'm going to close this project down. Create a new project. Let's call this screen 1. Don't need a Git repo. Okay. In the tree here, there's a thing for screen designs. So I can either add a new screen design, or there's a way you can add an existing file. So I actually have one of these prepared already because I want to show you one of these built. So I can navigate over to another folder, choose one of these, and it copies it into this project. Now, the screen editor is a separate tool, so when I click on this, it brings it up in a separate kind of modal dialog. So this is a screen that I built the other day. I don't know, a little border, some grass. I don't know if that's supposed to be a sun, maybe. So this grid allows you can scroll through and you can click and select characters. Kind of got a nice little pesky map here, so I can pull them together that way, and it's really just sort of like a click and place thing. There's also, from a mode, I'm in this draw mode. You can also go to a lines mode and a boxes mode. So with the boxes mode, I can actually drag and drop. It looks at giving me a selection area, and then it knows to use the pesky characters to draw a box like that, which is pretty cool. There's also a line mode that does similar things like that. And I can also go into a text mode. So let's make it white text. And because I'm in text mode, I can select into an area here, and I'm just going to start typing. Let's see. Press any key to continue. Ooh, wait, that did that forced their uppercase. Let's see, forced uppercase. There we go. All right, so I got this screen. Let me save this. And now I want to put it somewhere. Before I do that, let's go back into the basic file. I'm going to, no, there we go. Export to basic. Give you some option here before it decides what you want to have it to generate this code. You want to have it generate the empty rows, where do you want the line number to start. Let's do that. It gives you this little actual basic printout using the screen codes from what I just drew on the screen there. I'm going to say copy to clipboard and close. Let's add a new basic file here. And I'm going to paste that code. And so this is all the code for that screen. I want to do one thing to make this a little more interesting. So I want to put the semicolon at the end of that line there. And I want to, line 283, let's, wait for it to press a key so it doesn't roll off the screen and print that ready thing at the bottom there. Base string equals nothing. Then go to 283. All right, so that's what we just built this screen. We exported it to code. Let's see what it actually looks like in the emulator, huh? And that's the screen we just built. Pretty cool. All right, let's try something else. I've got another program that I wrote a long time ago. And I'm going to do the same thing that we were trying earlier. So let's start off with, yeah. Let's just close this project and make a new project real quick. I'll call this one Quest 1, no Git repo. Okay, so like I said, I made this program a long time ago. And let's see. Called Quest. There it is right there. So this Quest program has kind of like a little screen I built inside of it. I guess I was trying to do something there. I never finished this, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously, but I never finished it. But it draws these little mazes, and then in the mazes, you'd use the joystick and kind of wander around in here. Then once it wouldn't let you run into the walls, and once you hit something else, it like thought there was supposed to be a different map, and it would like take you somewhere else. Anyway, so that is actually implemented in code, right? Because you can see like the little maps, like the map templates in the code here. So let's try something and see how this works. All right, I am going to once again go and I want to import a basic file. So I'm going to go and I'm going to browse to that disk image there. Let's see. All right, so this is that program that we just saw. Of course, it had to convert all those pesky characters over into all this stuff here. And, I want to do a different map. So what I'm going to do here first is I got this whole section here highlighted that I want to replace this map that was already in the original listing. I can comment out that entire block. Pretty handy, so I don't have to lose that block. Let's create a little space here. Now, I also don't know how many lines my new screen is going to take, because right now this is pretty tight. It starts right off at line 70. So let's renumber this whole program. So I don't have a selection. It's going to do the whole thing. So if I go in here and say, I don't know, let's renumber it starting at 100, and let's go increments of 100 just to see, just why not? And there, so it just renumbers the entire program. And I've got a lot of space here between 200 and 300 to do something interesting. All right, I actually prepared a screen design for this earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and add an existing file. I'm going to choose that screen design here. Maze. So this is the little screen design that we saw in code earlier, right? Now, because I think I made this on graph paper or something. I don't know why I was being so conservative with the size of it. I don't know. I don't remember. But there's no reason to be that conservative because the program just looks at prevents you from running over a checkerboard character. So I can make this maze anything I want to. So if I can go in here and just erase chunks of this old maze, if I want. And let's go here and pick the checkerboard, and I can just extend this out, make this a little larger, and just keep it safe so I don't crash into things. And I don't know, not really trying to be too interesting here, but just kind of show how this works. Create some other areas now, and you saw that also it's when I hit the diamond pattern, is when the program seemed to know it wanted to do something. Box myself in there, so let's put a diamond out here. There we go, let's put a diamond right there. All right, so I just kind of changed that up, whatever. So if I export this to BASIC now, wait, did I do that right? Where do I want to start? Oh, yeah, I want to do something between lines 200 and 300. So when I do the exporting to BASIC, I want to say start at line 210, increment by 1. All right, so that gives me my screen. Copy that, and I'm going to pop it right in this area. And that's it. All right, is this going to work? I hope so. All right, let's see how it goes. Build it to the emulator. Wow, there it is. I just extended that maze, and things still work. So I can wander around here, and if I wander and hit the little diamond, it knows that it's still a diamond and jumps me around to the thing. So that is a quick way that you can use the screen editor to do some pretty amazing things. All right, are you ready for more? Can you handle it? All right, sprites. Oh man, how many people had graph paper and you had to design your sprites on graph paper? Right? I used to do that. I think I was supposed to be in biology class and I was supposed to be doing something else, but I remember I used to draw on the graph paper they gave me in biology class to do sprites a lot. All right, anybody recognize that balloon? Right? That was the first program I ever did that had sprites. It's in the user manual, you know, right there where you had the little program. All right, well, this is pretty cool because there's not only is the Sprite Editor, which has a lot of different kind of neat things, how you can manipulate individual sprites and you know, create more. There's also a lot of really cool support in the studio for this. So if I go and create a new project, I'm gonna call this one SP1. All right, when he was building this and developing this, he put a lot of sample files in here. So under the file menu, there's sample programs, there's basic programs and assembly programs, and most of these are all programs that were from the user manual and the programmer's reference guide. So if I go to this balloon program here, this is that up and away program that everybody has seen many times. Although I actually want to make it, I do want to make two changes so that you can see it better, right? Let's see, let's do this real quick. Line 25, I want to change the color of that, or change the vertical size. Yeah. I want to change the horizontal size. Sprite 2 to 29. That's expanding them. And also I'll make it, because if you remember this was like cyan colored when this program first comes out, so I want to make that sprite white. All right, just to prove that I'm not lying, let's look at it in the emulator. And that's the program we all know and love. All right. The Sprite Editor. You can start from scratch, obviously, but there's a really cool thing here because, right, these data statements are all what's defining that one sprite. So if I open, let's go to Sprite Data, say add a new, I'm going to call it balloon ball. When I open up the Sprite Editor, it gives me an option to import from a listing, from memory, from a bitmap, from a binary file. I'm going to say from a listing, because I have a listing I know includes one sprite. And when you're importing sprite data, you can choose, if you know where the sprite's at, you can say if there's multiple, how to handle it. But I'm going to say this really cool thing called find sprite data. It's going to take that listing that I've got open behind me here, and it's going to parse it and try to find a sprite. And it does. there's the balloon sprite that it parsed out of that data. Now you can do a lot of things here, right? You can flip it left and right. You can flip it up and down, shift it up, shift left, shift right. The Sprite Editor gives you a lot of cool things here. You can also, there's this kind of scroll bar area here. You can actually load a series of sprites. So if you have an animation you want to do, so if you have one, you can copy it to a second sprite. Then you could flip it or rotate it or move it around, so you could do an animation. And there's a scratch pad here. If I've got a bunch of sprites loaded, that you could play around with that animation. I've only got the one sprite, so I can't do much, but it kind of gives you a way that you can mess around with putting sprites on top of sprites and setting the priorities. So it gives you a lot of cool things you can do if you're trying to do an animation there. But anyway, back to this one. All right, let's change it. So so I have the Commodore logo, which we all love the Commodore logo. Let's try something else. I want to do, since we're here at VCF, let me see if I can somehow put a little V and a little, I don't know, is that a C? Yeah. And an F. All right. Next door looks like a VCF, I guess. Yeah. All right. So same as the way that the screen editor allowed me to export to code, I can export this sprite now too. So first of all, I know this data section here. I don't want to put it over it, but I like the comment thing, so let's comment out all of that old sprite data. I know I can start somewhere, anywhere I want to after line 70. So let's export this to a listing, and I want it to start at line number, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Let's start at line number 1000, why not? And there is the newly exported data for that sprite that we just created. We modified the Commodore to put the VCF logo in there. And let's see what it looks like. Let's give it a shot. There it is. Wow, VCF. Look how easy that was. Take an existing sprite that you could pull in from any program that has sprites in it. And it took me 2 minutes, right, to modify that, and boom, new sprite. Okay. All right, close the emulator. Let's see. We're doing okay on time. I'll see if I can go through this next section. Let's see how quickly I can do that, because I wanted to talk just briefly about the assembly language features this thing has. It kind of uses its own version of assembly. I know Kick Assembly has been a real popular one in the Commodore crowd recently. It's a good 3-pass assembler. It's got everything you would probably want as related to labels, variables. It's got a way you can create a neat little basic loader or the syscall. I'll try to show you that. But there's actually a lot of good information out there. It's not that dissimilar from an old Commodore, a lot of the other C64 MASMs out there. So it's not going to be too alien if you've done a lot of assembly language. All right, let's try this. I'm going to, of course, start off with a new project. Close this project down. All right. I'll call this ASM3. Nope. All right. So instead of doing basic files this time, I actually want to do an assembly file. And because I don't want to have to type all this in, I actually did pre-create this. So I'm going to add it as an existing file. There it is. All right, so this is a real simple little program that's going to clear the screen. This is going to set the background and the border to red. A couple things, if I don't know if you know assembly that well, but I'm mixing things here, which is pretty cool, right? I've got some regular values, I've got some hex values, I've got an integer value here, because if you don't know, I mean, I didn't know this, but if you know D020 is actually 53280, from hex to decimal, I don't know. But anyway, you recognize those as old poke statements, right? I'm going to put 65 into the X register, put that into A. This JSR actually prints what's in the accumulator, increments it, compares it, see if I've reached the 91, and I'm looping back to this, moving the X to A. So what this is basically going to do is just going to print out ASCII, A to Z. That's what it's going to do. All All right, so, and I'm starting at this, the beginning of the basic, right? Which is, I don't remember what the hex 0810 is. It's 2064. All right, so what's this going to look like? Let's do this real quick. Build program, run. Oh, hang on, I got a processor error. I had this problem happen to me last night. I had to open it and then reclose the project again. Hopefully we can get through this because this was really messing me up last night. I didn't know why this was happening. All right, let's build it as a project. To file first. All right, no preprocessor errors. All right. So let's load this up in the emulator. Doesn't do anything, right? You're like, why did it do anything? Well, because it just put it into memory. It didn't actually execute anything. But if I know that I poked this program starting at 2064, there's the program. All right, but that's crummy. You just saw how awesome that was when I was doing all those basic programs. I just pulls it into the emulator and automatically runs it, right? Well, of course, there's an easy way to solve this. So give me a couple lines of white space here. Under the tools here, I can either generate a basic loader, or I can actually generate a syscall. I'm going to generate a syscall here. It says, where do I want to start it at? Do I want to comment? I want to start it at the beginning of basic. Yeah. There it is. So it puts something right there, gives me this little loader. That's basically, all it's going to do is basically say sys 2064, which is this label right here. So now, if I build this, let's see, build it to file. Yep. And then I'm going to build it and run it. Launches the emulator and actually runs the program. So the syscall is a neat little handy way to get into that. Okay, wow. I think we are 11 minutes left, so I think I've just about made time. So I didn't talk about everything. Remember that long list of features that I brought up at the beginning? I didn't, but I did talk about the Sprite Editor, the Screen Designer, the Screen Code Builder. We saw that. I saw most of all the editing stuff, but there's things we didn't talk about. The Character Editor. There's a Character Editor that is just as fully functional as that Sprite Editor and that Screen Designer. You can actually bring those into the Screen Editor and have your custom characters in the Screen Editor. Very cool. I was never much into music, but there's a really cool SID tool. I haven't really made much with it, but it's also built in there. The assembly language I showed you, there's a built-in debugger, so you don't have to use the Vice debugger. You can actually do a little memory map and actually see things right there in the IDE. There's a bunch of cool basic constants that are built in. Really worth it. All right. What should you do next? Have I inspired you? I don't know. Have I confused you? Perhaps. But the tools are all free. I'll post them in the Discord channel where the links are. You can get all these things I showed between the DIR Master, Vice, and the CBM PRG Studio. It's all there. Has a really good help file. In the help file, there's tutorials. And you saw the other thing where I could generate sample programs. There's a lot of ways you can get stuff out of there. There's also books. There's a guy, he's not the guy who made the program, but this guy, he goes under the handle Old School Coder. He actually has published, there's 2 books on Amazon that he's written about how to use these tools to develop for C64s. And there's a whole lot of YouTube videos, so you can check his out. And then really just try it out. I think the first thing I ever did with this was I wanted to take it and I built it to a D64 file and I put it on my C64 Maxi and wanted to see it run on almost real hardware. So it was pretty cool. And that's all I got. I guess we got 10 minutes, so you can take a breath. You just soaked in all this amazing things, think about all the things you want to do, or ask some questions. So what do you got?
So the IDE, you said, remember how it changes the PETSCII characters, and can you display the characters?
No, so the question is how in the IDE that we were showing all the character codes. Let's see, do I have one of those real quickly?
Like your maze, for instance.
Yeah.
I wrote a lot of programs like that too.
This one. So the question is there a way to get these back? And the answer is no. So there are 2 different formats for this. I don't know if you can see this very well. but in the options under the basic code generation, these are the two standards. TOC64 is the one that I like because that's the one that I first used. It's the older standard. There's also a bass text format. It uses parens and different codes. It's very similar. But I think that was one of the trade-offs he made, and that's why I always use that DIR Master tool and have that around, because if I want to see what that used to look like. Let's see, yeah. They actually put a lot of effort into being able to display those like this. So it took me a while to get used to that, because I was used to like being able to like just look at the code and like see it and see the images like this. But as I started getting used to using the screen designer for everything I did, it kind of bothered me less. So I'm not sure if that helps, but yeah, that was my first reaction to it. I'm like, I want to see this. I'm looking at all this stuff. I don't see all this and all these like 166s and stuff like that. Good question though. All right, anybody else? Yeah.
What is the support like for disk files? I mean, I saw you using Directory Master, DIR Master, bringing things in, but if the program reads and writes files, open, 8 comma, where does it send these? Can you see those files in the directory?
Okay, so the question is really like, I was doing a lot of things where I was compiling things, and I was putting them into PRG files and D64 files, and where do they go and can I see them before I run them in the emulator? And the answer is, it is all in, let's see, I'm not sure if you can build this, let's hope you can see this, okay. So here's all those project files I was creating here. It actually builds them to, this is to a PRG file. That was a subtle difference. I'm not sure if you saw that or not, but sometimes when I was going to the build menu, I was saying I want to build the program. Sometimes I was saying I want to build the project. If I build the program, it creates a .prg file. And that PRG file, you can look at it directly. There it is. It's a really, this is that PRG file that I had there. It's got one program called Quest 1. That .prg is a format that that Vice knows how to actually mount that directly with a parameter. That's actually what it does. If you see in the output here, if I build this program and run it, it actually starts the emulator and it passes in the parameter for what the thing it just built was. And as well as, like I said, if I do it as I say, don't build the program, but I say build the project. I did that for something. Was it the ASM? Yeah, well, there's PRG files. There's a way that you can also it will build a D64 file.
That probably answers the question that you built out. I guess you did say that then you moved it over to the new hardware.
Yeah, which is just as easy. Like I say, you can take any of those PRG file and you can create a new disk image here. It says it's got them all, D64 all the way through anything else you can possibly want. So I could create a new image here, and I could take any PRG file and move it around. Like I said, this tool is like crazy helpful if you're dealing with anything off an emulator and back onto real hardware. You've got to have this DIR Master tool.
That's great. I have not heard of that. The other two, particularly Vice, been around a few years.
Yeah. Cool. All right, I've got another couple of minutes. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
So have you written any modern large programs?
I wrote this Hammurabi program, and that's when I first started realizing that I started that program during COVID, and I started writing it directly when I got my Maxi. And I'm like, that's when I started going like, God, this is impossible. I can only see this much of the screen. I'm like taking the handwritten notes again. So that's when I looked around. I first started to use VS Code, and I wanted to use VS Code for that. And I tried some plugins, and it was okay, but like I say, VS Code has even more problems with not knowing Petsky. Then I stumbled across the CBM PRG Studio, and that changed everything. And I was able to, that's one of the first things I did was like, how do I create multiple basic files so I can have all this program logic put in different spots? You saw how fast this was as far as like I opened, closed, created projects. It's super fast. And anyway, like the code and all the artifacts are like really small, right? So I have had no problems using any large programs either.
That's really cool to see. Thank you, Karen.
Cool. All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. Enjoy the rest of the show.